talk about how to grow a news podcast.
Yes.
That's what the
Topic
instruction
is.
says. And until 5 minutes ago, Abbas was supposed to host this. Now I'm hosting this. And hello, everyone who is watching. Welcome to this series that we are doing called Podcast 101. And we are essentially trying to figure out podcasting space in general in India. So there's
Yes.
a lot to talk about.
Correct.
This time I was thinking, let's go. I was thinking, let's talk a little deeper about just generally interest in podcast also.
Okay.
Have you seen a change? Because you've been there for a while, na?
Yeah. By some turn of events, I've been in the podcasting business
Yeah.
for 6 years now. So,
Yeah, longer than me actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't even in the podcasting business. Sure, we had some podcasts.
Right.
But when was the first time you heard a podcast?
Oh, that must have been around, I think, 2011 or 2012.
11 or 12.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fair, makes sense. Fair
Yes.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so now in the business, what is the changes you've seen over time?
Okay. So at least now more people are aware of the name of the term podcast than they were before. Um, but again, because of the way people consume content in India, people have this notion that podcast means four men on YouTube in front of microphones
Yes.
chilling and talking. Like I saw this tweet where someone said कि अच्छा तो मैं जो लास्ट बेंच पे बैठ के अपने दोस्तों के साथ कर रहा था उसको पॉडकास्ट बोलते हैं. So there is this notion of that now. People in India, I think, still associate podcast with YouTube.
There is a meme I saw. When a man mansplains to a man, it's
Yeah.
called a podcast. Yeah.
But I think the popularity of some American shows, like of course Joe Rogan, we love him or hate him, but he's done certain things which have been newsworthy globally.
Yeah.
Because of his show.
Yeah.
So people know this format now. Okay, there is this conversation kind of talk show thing happening and it's available online. So I think more people now know about it. Even if they don't know what a podcast is, they can figure out that you do this thing where you sit in front of a microphone and talk about stuff. Also, I think short form content, Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, at least my feed is filled with podcast snippets.
Yes.
Yeah.
That has
So that I think
happened.
has been the biggest change in just the last year or year and a half.
Yeah, because of the reels and the TikTok
Yes,
format
yeah.
also. Yeah.
Because you can find a lot of these small bits which you can just cut out and put on audio or video in short form content, which becomes newsworthy. So in that regard, yes, a lot more people know about podcasts, but there is still a confusion about the consumption of it. A lot of people still not aware of podcasting apps.
Yeah.
So that I think
Like,
is,
how do you listen to a podcast is one
yeah.
big question. And now the thing is, YouTube now is experimenting with the podcast feature also, because
Oh,
I
really?
think, yeah, they are also like, there was news I was reading that YouTube is going to start a separate podcast, matlab, like section only. Obviously, there are so many podcasts coming. So now YouTube might actually become the biggest platform for podcasts.
It's very possible.
Now, I
Yeah.
mean, like, and the thing is that video doesn't really matter in a lot of ways. But so I was thinking about it. My podcasting habits have changed.
Okay.
So first time I heard a podcast was, I think, again, long time ago, like 2012 13 types. Regular listener of NL Hafta, which started long ago. Then actually wanted to go work with yeah. The first time I came on NL Hafta, I was thrilled. I was like, fuck, मैं आ गया, मैं पहुंच गया हूँ life में types. And then, of course, but my habits now, I try to find games that I can play while listening to podcasts. So like mindless games, which are like, grind. Those kind of games, which I'm listening to podcasts and playing that game.
Okay.
And this actually, the idea that I got is from streamers who do this exact thing, where they're playing a game, they're listening to a podcast, and then there's a chat going, and then they're also talking to chat. They're talking about the podcast. They're also talking about the game. It's weird.
Yeah.
Oh, there is Saif Ali Damani and Shweta. Oh, Shweta is here. Hello, Shweta.
Yes.
Shweta has applied for to be union leader of
Oh,
spectators
really?
on
Nice.
ALI 10. Shweta, our producer is taking a call on that. We have no say. None of us are producers.
That's true.
Yeah, they take a call. So please come and tell Sakshi about
Mm.
that. uh, but what is she saying? IVM's Toot, the only short form podcast I listen to.
That's the origin of things, which is hosted by Chuck from Who Also Does
Yes,
Simplified. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Oh, that's a great
That's a
podcast.
really good
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
There it is based on this other podcast which I heard about, which was called That's the Way I Heard It.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's based on that concept which
Got
which
it.
he uses. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but you were saying so you have seen like podcasting evolve and now it has become more acceptable.
Yes. In fact, now just now when you mentioned NL Hafta, I remember that was also one of my first Indian podcasts that I discovered.
Right.
And they used to upload files on SoundCloud,
Yes.
right? So you would go to SoundCloud to basically find music,
Yes.
and then this would somehow show up, and you would start playing it.
Yeah.
So from the and for a long time, I think SoundCloud was the
Hmm.
platform for most podcasters
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
was just very easy to upload. I think from that point till today, where people are now, at least the podcast people who are interested in wanting to make podcasts are aware of websites which host podcasts,
Yeah.
where if you upload something it shows up everywhere:
Yeah.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, ye wo. So at least in that regard there are way more podcasting apps now
Yeah.
than the good old days.
You
Or
know, I now that I think of it, when you mentioned SoundCloud, I had this bizarre memory. So
uh,
the first content I've ever put out online, like content,
mhm.
was a podcast. I
Oh,
used to host this podcast called Policy People,
okay.
where me and other fellow lambs
uh,
would gather and we would talk about legislation and policy and
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And I would edit it and put it up on SoundCloud.
Mm.
And we would do it in our office.
Yeah.
And then I was building up towards getting my boss on the podcast. And I asked him, "Will you come on my podcast?" And he's like, "What the
Yeah.
fuck is a podcast?"
Yeah.
Right. And this is a guy who then I had to convince to do a Reddit AMA.
Okay.
And then he's like, "What the fuck is a Reddit AMA?" But then we're like, "Dekha, kya ho gaya?" But yeah. There is Saif Ali saying hello. Currently love Smartless. Has anyone heard this? Smartless?
Yeah, so Smartless is an American podcast. I think did I tell you about it or someone? It's hosted by three comedians slash actors.
Hmm.
There's Will Arnett. There's the guy from Ozark. I'm
Hmm.
forgetting his name.
Hmm.
And there's a third guy who used to be in Will and Grace. So they're
Ah,
actually real life friends.
okay.
And they started in the lockdown where they were all at home, and they would get a guest. But the catch is only one of them knows who the guest is. The other two find out on the podcast. Kind of similar of
ELI 10, boss. Ye what?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it started with them getting friends from the film industry and
Mhm.
TV industry, like Jerry Seinfeld. These are all comedians. But then Smartless started getting so big that a couple of weeks ago, I think Joe Biden was
What?
on their show.
What
Yes,
the fuck?
yes.
Okay. I have to check this out. Oh, ELI 10 का बहुत potential है
Yeah.
मतलब. Holy shit. Modi ji. If any of you 6 people watching is Narendra Modi ji, please आ जाओ.
Yes.
ELI 10 का हम अब गेस्ट को नहीं बताएंगे. Like the Eulos won't know.
Yeah, yeah,
That like that will be so funny though. Like Eulos comes in like like someone like Shreyas or Govind just walk
yeah.
in. कौन है guest? Modi ji is sitting there looking at them. Speaking of Modi ji, let's
Yes.
talk about news podcasts. So the topic of this, hello new people. Gary Pereira is here. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Um,
Jason Bateman. Yes, sir. Thanks
Jason
for
Bateman
pointing
is
it out. That's the guy.
yeah, Jason
Yeah.
Bateman. Yeah. So the agenda of today is news podcasts
Mm.
and how to make them or how to grow them. Basically, let's just go freewheeling on this
Sure.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a channel called All About Now,
Yes.
which is on YouTube and which is also on other platforms, audio platforms, which have 3 shows. One is Explain Like I'm 10, one which I host. Then
Mm.
one is Page 10, which
Yeah.
Abbas
Which I
hosts.
host.
And the third is How to Citizen, which me and Shreyas Manohar host. All 3 different concepts, but somewhat in the current affairs
Yeah.
space-ish, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about page 10.
Yeah.
Why do we do it?
We do it because we all have opinions and we
Hmm.
all like to keep up with the news, and
Hmm.
we like to express and voice our opinions
Hmm.
about said news.
Hmm.
So the concept of page 10 is basically I'm the host, and every week we have a panel of either 3 or 4 people. One of the one regular panelist is you,
Hmm.
Meghnad,
Hmm.
but the other two we keep switching. So
Hmm.
we've had journalists, we've had writers, we've had our producers step in to
Hmm.
be on the panel. And what happens is we take every panelist brings one piece of news which happened preferably in the last
Hmm.
week, and they give a little explainer for 7-8 minutes, and
Hmm.
then we give our opinions on it, and we have a conversation around it.
Right.
Why is it important is a good question. I think because healthy conversation about news is getting lesser and lesser in our
Hmm.
country. I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
news has completely let it go.
Yeah.
There is a set format from 9 to 10. We have so-called panelists, but
Hmm.
we all know that there is no sensible point that will come out of that
Yeah.
quote
Yeah.
unquote debate.
Yeah.
It's all about yelling, it's all about making controversial statements, it's about all about hashtags. So I think this very simple thing of three or four people who are, I mean, I'm not even a journalist.
Hmm.
I'm just reading what happened,
Hmm.
explaining it to the people who listening to it who may not know about it, and just sharing our opinions about it.
Hmm.
And then even if there is a difference of opinion, we are not yelling at each other's throats.
Yeah.
Just let's agree to disagree and move on,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So and there is, I think there is something very special about topicality in podcasts.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some people might disagree with it. They might say that why would I want to listen to some piece of news 3 months from now?
Hmm.
But when I get interested in a podcast, like when I discovered NL Hafta, there were some 30 or so episodes down. I went back to the previous episodes and
Binged it, right?
binged it. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, so I was looking at our podcast data also.
Hmm.
Page 10 ka, I think episode number 11
Hmm.
became very famous. That was when the Adani saga was happening,
Right.
right? And even now, I think that's the most heard episode that we have. Even now, people are going back to that episode and listening to it.
Right.
So I think you're right. Like
Hmm.
people are going back
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
listening to it also.
And I think people pick their favorites.
Yeah.
Okay, I like this panelist. I like this panelist. Now I want to know their opinion about something even happened 3 months ago,
Right.
and see what whether maybe whether because you align with the person talking, or
Hmm.
maybe you just like the way the person talks and
Hmm.
explains
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, those things are that uh, for lack of a better word, that intimacy that you have with
Hmm.
the host or the
Hmm.
panelist,
Hmm.
that becomes special on a
Yeah.
podcast.
And also, like, so my thought was with page 10 also. I was thinking about why we do it.
Hmm.
Ek to, you're right, like, news has become very alienating
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
whatever. But I would also say, because of the format, of course, the screamy, shouty
Yeah.
format,
Yeah.
but it's also alienating because from the other end also,
Hmm.
which is like over intellectualization of
Right.
things,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So the reason why I think it also is important to get like non-journalists to
Hmm.
talk about news is because then we are all giving very basic takes,
Right.
like, and that is very important to draw people in
Hmm.
to following the news,
Hmm.
because I feel like following the news is super important.
Hmm.
Just that people don't understand why,
Yeah.
और when they try to, they're like, यार ये बहुत टॉक्सिक है, मुझे
Hmm.
नहीं करना है, या फिर ये
Hmm.
बहुत स्मार्ट लोग हैं, इनसे
Yeah.
डील नहीं करना है.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we are somewhere in the middle, I feel like, or
Right.
that is our attempt, I guess, where and the other, I think the second reason is, uh, I think it's also important to create space for newer journalists
Mm-hmm.
in the podcasting space
Mm.
to come in and share their stories,
Mm.
because till now whatever journalists we've had,
Yeah.
they come in to share the stories that they're actually doing.
Yeah. Correct.
Right. And like, from Caravan, we had Urvashi.
Yes.
We had Sindhu from Your
Your story.
Story. We
Mm.
had who was it from Kaleem from Alt
Alt news.
News.
Yeah.
A bunch of people came
Mm.
in,
Mm.
and all of them had very fun stories to share because they
Yeah.
actually worked on it.
Yes.
It was very nice, and it also helps me discover more
Yeah.
journalists.
Yeah.
Now I'm following them, right?
Yes.
And now I'm following their work.
Yeah.
And I hope they come back,
Yeah.
yeah, to our show also, which is great. There are okay comments. Shweta is saying maybe not the best place to ask this, but like radio has restrictions on live news. Does podcasting have similar restrictions? Oh, can you do a current affairs podcast that's 1 hour old news? Yeah, yeah. I don't think podcasting has any restrictions.
Restrictions as such. Yes. Uh, again, So usually radio will have the SNP restrictions, which is you can't curse, you can't probably take a
Huh.
name of a
You
competitor.
can't do news on radio.
That's true. Actually,
India,
yes,
like
yes, yes,
private
yes.
radio pe you can't do news.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't do cricket commentary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can't do cricket commentary. I think score bol sakte
Score
ho,
बोल सकते हैं
but you
हाँ.
can't give like a ball by ball update.
Yeah.
That are the two things I
Right.
know. Yeah.
So there is a interesting anecdote I remember for this news thing. When I was studying, so I have a diploma in media studies, and the professor who came to teach us radio production was this man called. His name first name was Utsav. I forget the
Hmm.
last name. So he told us that when that flooding happened in Bombay, 26 July 2006, 5
Hmm.
or 6, I think.
Hmm.
So place areas in Bombay had started flooding.
Hmm.
Now you can't tell on radio that this place is flooding, so avoid this or something like that, because that counts as news,
Holy
or
shit.
at least it did back then. So they couldn't say those things, but because now it was a matter of life and death for
Hmm.
some people, they broke that rule.
Acha.
They started telling that night
Hmm.
कि आप यहाँ मत जाइए, वहाँ मत जाइए, and they were taken off air for 2 days in later in the week because they broke the news. But apparently this was then taken to court, and then the rules were made a
Written.
little lax
Now they
for
give
radio.
traffic updates.
Now they give traffic
I
updates.
know.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
oh, that's interesting.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
now you're giving flood updates. So now you it translated into.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there was this interesting thing that happened last year
Hmm.
where Prasar Bharati had this interesting idea, which was so bizarre.
Hmm.
You can't do news on private
Hmm.
radio,
Hmm.
right? So they came up with this plan
Hmm.
that Akashvani ka jo bhi news broadcast hai, will give it to you.
Hmm.
And you pay us money
Hmm.
to broadcast that 1 hour unedited
Okay.
on your private news channel.
Got it.
Right? तो मतलब अगर तुमको न्यूज़ करना है तो you have to do this news that we are giving you, which
Right.
is government
Yeah,
news,
yeah, yeah.
right? Radio channels are like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why are we giving you more reach? It's like, let us do the news, na?
Yeah, yeah.
But that didn't happen. I don't know why they don't let news happen on radio, to be honest.
Yeah, even I don't actually.
Yeah. Maybe we need to look that up. That would be an
There must be.
interesting.
I mean, again, I'm guessing here a little bit, but there might be journalistic ethics, as our sound engineer is pointing out that the that Meghnad's laptop is running out of charge.
इसका किधर है? मैं कर रहा हूँ. ये वाला है क्या?
But yeah, while Meghnad plugs his
Yeah.
laptop, there are no restrictions, Shweta, as until now, as of 9th of March
Yes.
2023.
Yes. Bhuari mat lagao.
Yeah.
So, but essentially the point is that a podcast is a great medium also because I feel like sometimes when we go overtime,
Huh.
there is no harm
No harm,
done,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
still listen,
Yeah.
like 1 hour, 27
Mm,
minutes or
mm.
whatever. I now listen to more longer and longer podcasts. I am currently listening to this podcast called Fall of Civilizations.
Okay.
Basically just he's picked up random civilizations from history
Mm,
and how they fell
mm,
and what were the reasons behind it and were there any patterns that you can
mm,
observe.
mm.
Again, 3 hour podcast about like Tamil kings, whatever,
Yeah.
Roman English empire,
Yeah.
fall of that and
Yeah.
all the things. Very fun.
Okay.
Very fun.
Mm,
And then the other favorite which I have is Empire,
mm.
which I actually plugged last time also. William Dalrymple's
Yeah.
Empire.
I've yet to hear about it. I've heard
Yeah.
really good things about it.
Yeah, I am going more into history, I find now,
Okay.
podcasting wise. But yeah, so there is one thing that I think is worth mentioning though. So when you are when we were designing this
Mhm.
podcast, which is page 10,
10.
right?
Mm.
It was important to have a format,
Right.
which I think we should also talk about.
Mhm.
What do you think about the format in general?
Hmm. I like the format because again, like I mentioned, we are giving everybody equal opportunity to speak and to explain what they have and why they think it's important to talk about it. Of course, in the case of the journalists who've come to talk about their stories, it's something they have researched and written about. So they explain us in further detail why they chose the topic and how they went about doing it. But and after that, the round of discussion that we have, I think it's a very healthy, jovial discussion that we
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
Like we are not there to prove anybody wrong or to say
Yeah.
कि नहीं तुमने जो किया है गलत किया है ऐसा
Yeah.
नहीं करना चाहिए था. So I think that way it's a very democratic format.
Mhm.
हर किसी को we are giving chance to
Yeah.
come say
Yeah.
and plug your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, there are listeners, and I get comments
Hmm.
from listeners on my DM, etc., all the time.
Hmm.
And there are particular bunch of listeners
Hmm.
who are proper news nerds.
Hmm.
Right, proper news nerds matlab they will follow the news, they will do
Yeah.
all the things, they will read all the articles,
Yeah.
etc. So when they come to listen to page 10,
Mhm.
they are like, ye kya basic take de rahe ho?
Right.
Right, and I'm like, नहीं तुम्हारे लिए नहीं है ये
Right.
बेसिकली, लाइक
Right.
हम
Right.
बेसिक टेक्स के लिए ही आए हैं यहाँ
Right.
पे. द पॉइंट इज दैट वी वांट टू गेट लाइक न्यू पीपल इंटरेस्टेड इन द न्यूज एंड
Hmm.
व्हाट इज
Hmm.
हैपनिंग.
Hmm.
And of course it's all dependent on who is doing what story also.
Right. Right.
Right, like I got obsessed with Adani saga.
Hmm.
So it's a great thing that I have this format where I can actually go and talk about it
Yeah.
on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
because it's A, I'm following it anyway,
Yeah.
and B, I get to talk about it
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
In fact, I remember when we were planning the show, I had pointed out to you, okay, I feel like I'm not a journalist, so will I be able to fit in the
Yeah,
format?
yeah,
And then you said precisely what that
yeah,
it's more important that we get more people interested.
yeah.
And after a couple of episodes, that feeling started to fade away.
Ha.
Where I feel like if there is someone more knowledgeable than me about
Hmm.
some topic, I can ask them what the thing
Essentially
is.
that,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that's, I think, why I think it's important that you host it,
Hmm.
right? Because non-journalist comedian, but you also follow the current affairs.
Right.
You are on Twitter, you
Right.
follow current affairs, you
Yeah.
know what is happening in general,
Yeah.
and plus you have this ability to also like tell people about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Done. What
Yeah.
else do you need in a host? Right? क्या डिग्री की बात करते हो? मेरा थोड़ी डिग्री है जर्नलिज्म में.
Yeah.
Vijay More is saying, "Hi Meghnad, did you finish God of War? How about getting Cyrus into gaming?"
Oh my god.
Yeah, Cyrus into gaming, it seems. My God, नहीं होने वाला है. Just Vijay. But I did finish. No, I didn't finish God of War. आधा खेला I think मैंने. Then छोड़ दिया.
It's the most recent one.
The one that came on PC, so it was
Okay.
released much
Got it.
while ago. But
Huh.
now I'm a PC person.
All
So
right.
yeah, not politically correct. I'm sorry, sorry, that was bad. It's like, history podcast nerds, please listen to Conflicted. I can seem to recommend it enough. Oh,
Hey,
interesting.
I'll check it
Shweta.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. That we can do.
Hmm.
Yeah. So welcome to new people who are here. We are essentially talking about making news podcasts and current affairs podcasts. Just to the new people who are here, hello. This is a podcasting 101 session that we do every Thursday.
Yeah.
Sometimes Abbas hosts it. Today I am hosting it. Sometimes someone else will host it.
Yeah.
The point is that we are essentially expressing our love for podcasts. We are talking about them, and people are giving recommendations. So yeah, that's a good place to also do that. Today we are focusing on current affairs and news podcasts and what happens. So if you have any questions, if you want to talk about it, please leave comments. As you can see, Shweta is saying, I support that aim of page 10. My pod co-host has no idea of current affairs, and after one page 10 episode, she is a Meghnad fan. Oh, thanks. Like she looks at Meghnad like a Bollywood movie star. Shit, dude. Like, star ban gaya hu main. But thanks, Shweta. That's great. That's actually great. Yeah. Let's talk about the other shows.
Sure.
Explain like I'm 10. Yeah. So All About Now has two other shows other than page 10,
Yeah.
which is Explain like I'm 10. Now when I joined,
Mhm.
this was a big question though. Will I do news content? And I was talking to Amit and Kavita about this. um they did want to, they just didn't know what was the right way to go about it.
Okay.
Right. So when I came in, we had a lot of talks about this. So I wanted a show of my own, a podcast of my own. And the best thing that best thing that I do on a regular basis is to simplify concepts.
Okay.
So that's why
But we already had simplified.
yeah, we had simplified. That's very true. but it is not hosted by me.
Yes.
And and one of my favorite channels is Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk.
Yeah. Yes.
So ELI
Correct.
10 is the
Ah,
based
yeah.
on that.
Now that you mention it, yeah, it
That's
makes
what he
sense.
does, right? He
One
gets a
comedian, one
scientist,
expert.
yeah, and
Yeah.
one comedian, and then the comedian is asking a lot of questions, and he's also asking.
Yeah.
I think that's a great format. So I was
Mm,
like, "इस पे ELI 10 करते हैं."
mm,
And turns out it's actually doing quite well.
mm,
And people are interested in it, and there are very few very interesting lineup
mm.
guest and topic lineup that I got from Jennifer today.
Okay.
One of them I think will be how to make your own beer.
Ooh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So that's the thing. So like the format is, if in case you don't know, explain like
Yeah.
I'm 10. The format is I get one person who knows their shit, one person who doesn't know who the guest is or know the shit.
Yeah.
So they find out what is the shit when the recording starts.
Yeah.
And I host it. I basically make the conversation
Yeah.
happen. So we have been doing like a bunch of different topics:
Yeah.
how to publish a book, how to run a restaurant,
Mm.
etc. So this can go wild.
Yeah. So I was about to ask you, so did you conceptualize that as a news podcast?
Ideally, so when I first thought about this idea,
Mm,
if you look at my initial episode
mm,
list, there are a lot of heavy political topics on
mm.
it. But then I also realized that I don't need to do that.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, now that there's this format that is set,
Mm,
and that is the beautiful thing about podcasts, right?
mm.
Once you have figured out a format, you can do so many things, fit it in, right? Like with page 10 also we are doing it, like so many people coming in and so many news stories happening and
Yeah.
so much happening there. With this also, it's like, sure, I can be like, what is capitalism,
Mm,
like super heavy topic,
mm.
which is one of the list pe
Yeah.
hai hamare. There is what is activism,
Mm.
which is releasing tomorrow, by the way. Akar Patel. So what is activism is releasing tomorrow. And then we can go wild with how to run a restaurant.
Yes.
So initially, yes, it was supposed to be simplifying complicated
Mm.
political theoretical topics and policies,
Yeah.
but then now it's not that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very flexible, the format, because I
Mm.
remember you did when the NDTV takeover happened,
Yeah.
you did an episode about that.
Yeah.
So this, I think, answers your question, Shweta, that you can be topical as well as keep certain episodes away from the news. So
Right.
it
And
works both ways.
that's because you once you figure out the format, becomes much easier.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is this one, like Abhi, just we did an episode with this person called Eugene Choi.
Hmm.
Now Eugene Choi is runs a organization called Collab Asia. He's a South Korean.
Okay.
It was fascinating because when I read his profile, it was like he runs a digital rights management company.
Hmm.
Now, when I got into it,
Hmm.
I had no idea
Hmm.
what is digital rights management. It sounds simple. It's like, ठीक है, तुम digital person हो, तुम्हारे rights है, and that we manage somehow.
Hmm.
But turns out he actually works extensively on YouTube monetization.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So his whole concept is that by protecting your rights, so for example, you put out content on
Yeah.
YouTube, right?
Mm.
Like we put out like a podcast on YouTube. His company will help you
Mm.
copyright it.
Okay.
And his company will also guide you on how to do claims on it.
Got it.
So if someone uses that
Yeah.
content,
Yeah.
so either they can syndicate it, so they
Mhm.
can obviously like pay you for it,
Mhm.
or if someone uses it illegally,
Yeah.
his company will help you claim it.
Got it. Mm.
So then you can run ads on that.
Yeah.
So essentially, what he's doing is he's helping you make money
Correct.
by
Yeah.
protecting your copyright.
Yes.
So it kind of blew my mind because I was like, wait, this is going somewhere else. And Govind was on it, and he
Yeah.
was also like, oh, okay. Why am I on Instagram again? Why am I not on YouTube? So it's really fun. Like it goes in many directions
Right.
also. There is Saif is saying in recommendation, one of my favorite podcast is
Ad podcast.
but outside. What? It's literally what it says, random guess from the road. What a concept.
Wow, really?
Oh,
Is it called at the
at
rate
the rate
podcast?
podcast. It's called at the rate
Because
podcast.
otherwise it'll be really difficult to search for.
Yeah. It's called at podcast. Okay, that's strange.
Yeah.
Oh, but it sounds very interesting. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that?
I just want to say that for ELI 10, the whole secrecy of the guest and the topic is paramount, right?
Yes.
So I know many a times myself or Nivedita or
Mm,
someone from the office is
mm,
also
mm,
on the episode
mm.
as the 10-year-old. So this is the, I mean, for all the years I've worked at IVM, that's the one time, like, it's spoken in a very hushed tone. Like, do you think this one will be okay for this? But we can't tell them what the episode is about, you know.
Yeah.
And the moment I come to know about the episode, now I can't be on it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
interesting thing where Nikhil, who's the producer, or is it Sakshi?
Sakshi now. Yeah.
Sakshi now.
So,
Nikhil used to produce it earlier. Both of them have this very
yeah. Like
tantamount
hush.
task of keeping it very
Yeah.
secret.
Also, they do 2 calendar invites.
Yes.
So one calendar invite goes to the Eulos
Yeah.
because they can't include the guest in it, and
Yeah.
one goes to the guest and my private calendar because then they can't see it.
Figure out who the
So
guest is.
yeah,
Yes.
it's the logistics is a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, in case you want to come on the podcast as a Eulos, we are actually going to open it up slowly
Mm.
for our listeners
Listeners, yeah.
to come in and become union leader of spectators. Like Shweta has already applied, I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But yeah, that's the idea. Like we want to eventually expand it. अभी तो हम हमारे ही पंटर लोग लेके आ रहे हैं. ऑफिस में जो बैठा होता है उसको लेके आते हैं. But we want to genuinely
Yeah,
expand
yeah,
the
yeah.
pool. It's called podcast but outside.
Acha, okay.
Seth
Wow.
is saying. Podcast but outside. Okay.
I mean, the way you've described it, it seems like a nightmare to record and produce, but might be worth checking out if he's just picking out people from the road.
Random people on the street, and he's talking about what?
I have no idea.
Yeah, guess from, okay. Basically, just whatever you want to talk about.
Talk about, yeah.
Ooh, Abbas, we should do this, man.
I'm up for it. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
India में अगर ये करेंगे, it'll be wild.
It will be very wild.
Yeah, it'll be very wild. That's a great idea. Ramanathan is here. Hello, hello, hello. Anything and everything. Yeah. So they
There
talk
you
about
go.
anything and everything. Yeah. So and there is the third show,
Yes.
which is How to Citizen.
Yes.
Hmm.
Which was the one show जिसका format पहले से set किया हुआ था.
Set था.
Hmm.
Season
Which-
1 we did in 2017.
Yes, correct. 2018, I think.
2018,
Yeah.
which Abbas produced.
Yes.
Yeah. And you were one of the guests also.
I was one of the guests also.
Yeah.
About the chapter on freedom of speech.
Yes. Oh, that was a fun. So essentially, when IVM was not this monstrosity that it is today, back then in 2018, Amit and Kavita came to Media Rumble.
Ah, okay.
And
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and they were on a podcast panel.
Hmm.
And after the podcast panel was done, they came up to me and they were like, "Oh, would you like to host a podcast?" And they're like, "Oh, you come up with a concept, you do this, whatever, matlab basically whatever you want, essentially, just do a podcast with us." So I had this wild idea that so the reason why I came up with this idea also was because when I started working in Parliament, that is the first thing I did. I went and read the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th civics books.
Okay.
Because I knew shit about politics or Parliament.
Yeah.
And everyone around me was like a lawyer. Liberal arts wale the, political science wale background wale the. And I knew jack shit. So that was my go-to thing. Right? And I realized this is not bad. I mean, like, why don't I remember this?
Yeah.
It was because my teachers were bad.
Right.
So I was like, what if we do like something with this? And then that's when the format came up. And then again, the same sort of logic was that now that I'm in the political system, I have such a different, detailed look at politics.
Correct.
I needed someone who doesn't know shit. Right, which is Shreyas, the most clueless person on the planet. So also convenient because he's cousin.
Right.
So और कोई नहीं मिला मुझे. So I came to Bombay in 2018.
Yeah.
Right? On my own money. IVM used to be garib, guys, very garib. And then they were like, "Acha, so this." And I was like, "Oh, this is the concept."
Right.
And Amit and Kavita were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we started recording only.
Yeah.
So I think
So my episode was actually the pilot.
yours was the
Yeah.
pilot. Yeah,
And it was good enough that you thought we can actually use it. So then
yeah.
we eventually put it in the first season. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we did the pilot, and that is when I think we came up with this whole 24-hour thing also.
Ah, okay.
So the point is, with How to Citizen, we give the chapter to the guest 24 hours before the recording
Hmm.
because they can cram it.
Yeah.
And with Abbas, I think that didn't happen. So we
I think
actually
you,
broke format
yeah,
once.
it gave me a few hours, I think, 2 hours or something to go
Yeah.
through the chapter.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we essentially did the
Did
whole
the whole
thing.
thing, yes.
Kavita frantically calling comedians, getting them, and they came.
Yeah.
And they genuinely came. So we recorded in what, 3 days, all episodes?
Yeah, there were 2 batches. I think you did 6 episodes in one batch and 4 episodes in the
In the
in
next
the next
batch,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that was frantic,
Yeah.
and it was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and हमारा टूटा फूटा वाला थोड़ा सा setup भी था तब, but very fun,
Very fun.
very
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And Shreyas is garib only, so then उसको कोई पैसा नहीं मिल रहा है, मुझे भी कोई पैसा नहीं मिल रहा है, but we did it. Surprising response to that,
Uh-huh.
the podcast How to
Yeah, it was
Citizen.
great response. I remember our first episode was with Rohan Joshi,
Rohan, yeah,
and I think it was about the Constitution.
it was
And
about the
I still think, I mean, please listen to it if you haven't. It's one of the best episodes still, I think, of all the episodes you've done. And my favorite thing on How to Citizen is that whoever the guests are, they realize just how much our Constitution actually allows you to express, right?
yeah.
क्योंकि I mean, the system has beaten so much of inferiority into us that we just take it for granted कि हमको नहीं होगा right ये करने का, ये इस बात को उठाने का, या what are our rights. So that's my favorite thing when people actually read the whole thing and they're like, अरे ये तो अच्छी चीज लिखी है इसके अंदर, हम क्यों नहीं करते हैं
Yeah,
ये?
the shock that every guest till
Yeah.
now is like, यार ये chapter तो बड़ा useful है. I'm like, yes. I mean, हमारा civics, actually the design, the book is designed in a
Exactly.
wonderful way.
Yeah.
Like, especially now,
Yeah.
the CBSE.
I mean, we can talk about the cartoons and the comic strips and all of that.
So there are, just to give you context, there are comic strips.
Yeah.
Which are explaining like a scenario, and they're telling you about your rights and
Yeah.
role of government in health.
Yeah.
And there is a very funny bit that is coming soon in Richa Chadda's episode,
Okay.
that does this extremely dramatic reading of this situation, where she's a dad, she's a Punjabi dad,
Okay.
who is the go below, chal chai wana ke aao. It's so fun, but even all guests have said this, that हमने civics में क्यों नहीं ध्यान दिया था?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is the question that I keep asking myself, that every chapter, like, so we recorded one today. And I won't reveal the guest because she was not on the trailer. But if you want, you can go to the IVM podcast Instagram page and see it anyway.
Yeah.
कोई suspense ही नहीं रखते हम अब तो. It was a chapter on women change the world, right? Again, it's interesting how people bring in their personal sort of opinions and their perspectives into it. Now, she grew up in Kashmir. Her 7th standard happened in 1990,
Right.
when shit was going down.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
she was like, pura to skip ho gaya हमारा. Like, everybody was at home, everybody was chilling and
Yeah.
whatever. And then she became way more aware about politics and her rights because of the situation in Kashmir. So at a very young age, like 9th, 10th type,
Right.
she was there. And because of the situation, she was like, oh, this is what the government does, this is what. But for me, it happened when I was 19, 18, 19.
Right.
When did this happen to you, the political awakening, as I call it?
Sometime around, I think, when I was 13 or 14 years old, actually, I can trace it to 9/11. The 11th September attacks happened, and I was 14 back then, so I must have been in 9th standard, I think.
Right.
2000, I was in 8th or 9th standard. And suddenly there was this barrage of global events happening.
Yeah.
And I often say that there was this sequence of events, right? 9/11 happens, then 13 December, the parliament attacks happen.
Yes.
Few months later, the Godhra incident happened,
Ha.
then the Gujarat riots
Ha.
happened. So there was this so many
Then
things.
Prince falls into a
Yes,
borewell.
that also. Very much, yeah,
Yeah.
because 24/7 news channels were new back then. So
Yeah.
there was that was the first sensational
Yeah.
non-news that they had to make into
Yeah.
news.
Then 2008 happened.
Yes.
Then the financial, no, the Anna Hazare movement
India
happened.
Shining happens.
Oh, India Shining
Atal
happens.
Bihari
Yeah.
Vajpayee loses the
Oh, that's
election.
true.
That happens.
Yeah.
This new prime minister comes. All of that. Financial crisis
Yeah.
happens. George Bush loses the election. Obama comes in.
Right.
Right. So these mid 2000 these years, so much of global churning was happening, and even within the country, so much was happening. And that was the first time I wanted to know, who are these people running the country?
Yeah.
What is political party? Why are some people not getting to voice their opinions, but other people are?
Right.
So I think it was around that time.
For me, it happened much later though.
But what I realized is the reason we never gave. So yours, I'm assuming CBSE.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm also CBSE. The reason we never paid attention to civics was कि वो शायद कुछ 20-30 मार्क्स का आता था
हाँ.
और वो सेट था कि ये क्वेश्चंस
Yeah.
आएंगे and we
Yeah.
never went beyond that.
Was it 20 mark though?
Yeah, I think
60, 30
and
and 10.
economics was 10 marks. I think there was
Oh, economics was 10 marks.
Yes.
Civics was 20 marks.
and history was 40.
40. Yeah,
Yes.
and geography भी बीच में घुसेड़ दिया था
Exactly,
कभी. हाँ, हाँ.
So we never read the chapter because we were like, हाँ ये 10 क्वेश्चन के अलावा वो कुछ पूछेगा नहीं 20 मार्क्स का.
Yeah.
So we just ratified that and छाप देते थे पेपर में.
That's true.
But it's only now that we're rereading the textbooks, and also this time you've gone as class
7th.
class 7.
Yeah.
First season was class 8.
Yeah.
So you're going in reverse.
Regressing. Yeah, we are society के साथ हम भी regress हो रहे हैं.
So yeah.
Yeah, there are comments.
Yeah.
So there is Mudit who is saying Theo Van interviewed a hooker, a plumber, a cop. Good concept. Okay. American comedian
Together?
podcast. Okay. That's interesting. Oh, there is another interesting. It's called Small Town Dicks.
Okay.
It's hosted by the woman who voices Lisa Simpson.
Okay.
She and two detectives who are twins.
Hmm.
They sit and they listen to intense crime stories from small town cops.
Okay.
Their crime stories are very
Of course.
intense
घरेलू.
in the sense it's like, oh, burglary हो गया,
Yeah.
ये आदमी बाहर पड़ा हुआ मिला
Yeah,
type.
yeah.
But it's like they're sitting in a pub and talking about this.
Yeah.
Oh, ऐसा हुआ. Oh my god. Okay, ये interesting था. Very fun about
Yeah,
that's also
yeah.
very fun. And then there is Saif is saying, where is Prince now? I don't know where Prince is now. Do you know where Prince is now?
Not really.
Yeah.
Someone should do this expose. Where is Prince now?
I barely, okay, I might be wrong on this, but I think he died.
Really?
I think so. Like, I barely remember reading it somewhere, but not sure. Like, please check. Yeah, so that's there. I was going to talk about How to Citizen. So with this season 2, because I also joined IVM, we were like, अरे इस time तो
This time they paid for the flights.
अरे इस time तो हाँ मतलब इस time तो बड़ा करना है.
हाँ.
And I feel like by texting Omar and Omar responding and Omar saying तुम कश्मीर आ जाओ and us going there and doing this, we put expectations really high for us. So the quality of guests that we had to get after Omar
Abdullah,
were automatically like we had
Extremely
to
high.
maintain like ये finale के लिए किसको लाना है?
I think we've already appealed to Modi ji right at the top. So
That's true.
If anybody has any contacts, please send them to us.
Modi ji, if you are more comfortable, we can get you Hindi.
Yeah,
Hindi
sure, why not?
textbook. Yeah, Hindi
Yes.
textbook will get you. But yeah, we are thinking of getting some very exciting guests for the finale as well. Yeah. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you approach political guests, right, who are in political parties, does it cross your mind that if they come on the show, you might get like there might be a partisan sort of approach to the show?
there is a worry. Also because you have to think of podcasting as a medium, but also about monetization now.
Okay.
Right. The thing is that now we are in this weird space where people are very reluctant to sponsor political content.
Correct. Yeah.
Again, when I say that, everybody's okay with sponsoring Arnab or like a Times Now or
Yeah.
like वहाँ
Yeah.
पे तो
Yeah.
पूरा ad फेंकते हैं.
Right.
But for something like a How to Citizen,
Hmm.
nobody's interested.
Hmm.
They're like, oh, controversy ho jayega.
Hmm.
Like same logic
Hmm.
which you just gave. Like,
Yeah.
so, oh, if Omar comes on this
Hmm.
podcast and he's talking about it, the assumption that people are coming in with automatically, I mean, normal, common people, is that हाँ ये तो anti-national कुछ तो बोलेगा ही.
Hmm.
He'll talk about separating Kashmir.
Hmm.
He'll
Hmm.
curse 370. He will curse Modi ji. He will do
Hmm.
all the things. But it's the civics book.
Correct.
It's the 7th grade civics book he's
Yeah.
talking about. He's talking about the right to equality,
Hmm.
the right to vote.
Hmm.
He's talking about basic concepts which are being taught to 7th graders. Now, he did talk about 370,
Right.
but it was not like vitriolic or anything. He was very
Hmm.
reasonable about it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And we also challenged him.
Hmm.
Like for example, Shreyas had this good point when we went in. Before that,
Hmm.
we were reading the news on him and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, we should ask him why people didn't protest when he was in house arrest.
Hmm.
And I was like, legitimate question. Why
Hmm.
why didn't people protest? Matlab, is it a sign that your popularity is gone?
Yeah.
Is it a
Yeah.
sign that you don't matter anymore?
Hmm.
We did ask him.
Hmm.
He got a little pissed. Matlab, you
Hmm.
can see like he's getting a little
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah.
But he was very reasonable about that also.
Hmm.
That there are way bigger people than me and activists and other people who also got arrested, but उन पे कोई protest नहीं हुआ था.
Right.
तो मैं क्या चीज हूँ?
Hmm.
I mean, very nice
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
answer वैसे.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But nothing he said
Hmm.
was really controversial.
Hmm.
Because I know Amit heard it
Hmm.
before it was released and he was like, this is fine.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, nothing will happen. Because he was also worried.
Right.
Everybody was
Yeah.
worried. When we went to Kashmir, everybody was worried.
Right.
A grenade blast हुआ था, like just a day
While you were
before.
there? Oh,
Just a day
okay.
before. And Sakshi's mom is calling her frantically कि boss तुम क्या war zone में गए हो क्या?
Right. Right.
I was like, no, it's chill, it's fine. But everybody was worried here at
Hmm.
IBM because this was the first time we did something like this
Correct.
also.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I came in like this curse on IBM. It's like, Chalo Kashmir. But yeah, we did it and it was very fun. But there is a worry.
Okay.
अभी जो episode release होगा
Hmm.
this weekend is with Priyanka Chaturvedi.
Right.
And she spoke about the Shiv Sena
Right.
extensively.
Hmm.
Like we asked her कि boss तुम कौन से Shiv Sena में हो?
Right.
And it's so fun because this format also allows them to be very self-deprecating.
Hmm.
I asked ki, okay, so which so every time she was talking about state government and her party is like which party? I was like, Shreyas was also like, Arey, which party? You
Right.
tell us first which party.
Right.
So it's really fun. And but she's talking about the role of state government.
Correct.
She's talking about what her work is as an MP.
Right.
She's talking about how she spends her MP LAD funds.
Right.
And she's a Rajya Sabha MP.
Hmm.
So how does that work?
Hmm.
It allows a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, politicians technically are the ideal guess for how to citizen because they are applying everything that's in
True.
the supposed to be applying everything that's in the textbook.
True.
Yeah.
But we went wild. We got Anup Soni for the second
Yes.
episode, which was like, but he's so good.
Yeah.
And all Balika Vadhu fans out there, please अपने WhatsApp पे वो link भेज देना. Is there anything else? But we can end this.
We can. There are a
Yeah.
few more comments in the chat.
Modi ji will only do podcast in Modi Stadium. Yeah.
We'll go there.
Modi ji is the biggest podcaster in India.
I know that's true. So I was about to ask you, don't private radio channels carry snippets of Man Ki Baat on their
Wait,
stations?
isn't Man Ki Baat broadcasted on ye
No, so from what I understand, live happens on Prasar Bharati.
Prasar Bharati?
But then throughout the day, other radio stations do play clips of it. As in this week's
Interesting.
episode.
I haven't heard this, but yeah.
I might be wrong again, but
I mean,
think
उनको क्या ही करेंगे? मतलब
that's true.
if they
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it,
yeah.
like whatever law doesn't apply
Yeah.
that when it comes to that.
Yeah.
There is Man Ki Baat. Yeah, Man Ki Baat is the biggest podcast in India. Like Joe Rogan se bhi bada hai wo podcast. To be perfectly honest, his audience will be massive if
Yeah.
some people actually hear it. But
Yeah.
You had me at Priyanka Chaturvedi. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I think we are done with the comments. I think we should end this.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching. This was Podcasting 101 on a Thursday at 7. If you want to talk more about podcasting, or you want people to know more about podcasting, then please bring them to this.
Mm.
Next Thursday, we will have another set of hosts and
Yes.
guests and people, maybe different hosts.
Yeah.
And
But it will be about
But it will
podcasting.
be about podcasting.
Yeah.
This is a platform that we are creating. It's a live stream where you can share your love for podcast. You can ask us questions. We
Yes.
are the OG network in India, the biggest network in India also,
Yeah.
which produces podcasts. So we pretty much are experts on this. So please, experts se pucho and get some answers.
Yes.
And that is what this is all about. See you next week.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye.